Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fridays with the Funk Collection. My name is Renee Funk with the Funk Collection, brokered by eXp Realty. And every Friday, we're getting together with some of our awesome agents. Today is no exception. I have the pleasure to share a conversation together with, for all of you, Miss Melissa Cox. Hi, Melissa.
Hello, Renee. Hello, everyone. It's so great to be here this morning. So
I
super
am
excited.
so fired up. So more recently, the agents have expressed an interest to share conversations on live and to think of ways that we can talk about real estate, talk about what we're experiencing as real estate agents, how we can better serve our customers, and have these conversations each week. Last week was episode 1. This is episode 2. And when I saw you raise your hand and say, I want to do it, I said, yes, because Melissa you are somebody I look up to so much. I'm a big fan. I know I'm putting you on the spot. I am a big fan of your Instagram stories.
Oh, thank you.
And before we start talking about customer service, which is the topic today,
Yes.
Can I just say how much I love your more recent story on Instagram where you're doing the twirl? What is that called? Do we have a name for that yet?
So I've come up with like dancing through the deals. I don't know. Yeah,
I like that.
I was inspired. I was at a showing and it was on just a little over an acre, and I just was inspired by like the Sound of Music, and when she was like out running through the fields, so that is what started it. It was like a Sound of Music moment, and now when I go to the homes, I like to do that because it's just something fun and silly to do.
I'm really putting you on the spot, but on your stories and in your Instagram, did you create a highlight section? So we're going to see a whole lineup of those.
So yesterday I realized I needed to do that. I'm going to overhaul my entire Instagram page so that it's cohesive and like my little reels are color coded. I follow a lot of influencers and I've been paying attention to what they're doing. So I'm getting excited. Yeah. So there will be the dancing through the deals reels.
I love it. And if you aren't following Melissa yet, please do. And well, we're not here to talk about Instagram specifically. We're here today to talk about customer service in the real estate world, which is a topic that warms my heart because I love it. So Melissa Cox, talk to me a little bit about previous customer service that you had prior to coming into real estate, and how have you parlayed customer service and put a fixture in your real estate business with customer service?
So customer service is actually, I have discovered in this last year, that's my passion in life. When you ask me when I was younger, what do you want to be when you grow up? It was always something customer service related. The big thing I've always said is I want to be a mom, which is pleasing and putting out that contribution into your child. But I like to do that into the community as well. So the experience I have, every single job I've ever had has been in the customer service field. I have 20 plus years in the Central Florida hospitality industry. Started in 1997 at SeaWorld Orlando when it was owned by Anheuser-Busch. So I completed all of the customer service module trainings through Anheuser-Busch. Then when it became SeaWorld Parks and Entertainment, I embraced any kind of training that they did that was customer service based. And I remember this almost daily. There was one thing they taught us was like, how do you apply your toothpaste? Dry toothbrush or wet toothbrush? And we had this conversation, right? And it became a debate.
But can I answer?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so I put it on a wet toothbrush. What does that mean?
Too.
Okay.
I don't know. It was just one of those things. Like, it doesn't matter how you put it on. We all put our toothpaste on a toothbrush. Does it matter if it's wet or dry when you put it on? The end result is you're brushing your teeth every morning. So it is something that has stuck with me every morning. I promise you, there is, out of 31 days, it's probably 20 something days when I put that toothbrush on, or my toothpaste on my toothbrush, I think about that. And just because someone else does it differently doesn't mean it's wrong. So that stuck with me. I also attended the Disney Traditions courses, and we're volunteers at Give Kids the World. So we had to go through training at Give Kids the World as well, which for anyone who doesn't know, Give Kids the World is a foundation organization that allows children with terminally ill illnesses to come in and stay financially free at their resort, and then they just give kids the world. They treat them, and it's all volunteer based. There's very little staff. So it's volunteer based. So my daughter and I have gone in and we've volunteered. We've worked the rides. We've worked like in the little studio things. And what you have to realize is when you go through that training, it's completely different than anywhere else you're going to work. You have to look at things completely different. And I like to look outside of the box whenever I'm working with people. My customer service, there's no enclosure for me. It's completely wide open. And I think all those trainings through Traditions, SeaWorld, Give Kids the World has really broken down all those barriers for me. So when I'm providing customer service, it's just endless. Like what you can do for your customers, there are no boundaries.
I have a soft spot in my heart for all realtors who came with a background in hospitality, and especially for those like yourself that came from the theme parks, you just mentioned Traditions at Walt Disney World, which I've gone through personally, and I have a background at Walt Disney Company in customer service. So these things, one of the reasons I have a soft spot in my heart for those that have traveled that path is because as a realtor, the real estate industry can become very transactional if we are not careful. It is a transactional process by most at the core. But I love to see those that came from that kind of caring, hospitality, customer service, working in resorts, working in theme parks where there's a lot of talk about creating extra magic. I love seeing how you all parlay that and bring that for your real estate customers. So it is transactional for you. You're going to be there to understand all the ins and outs of the transaction to serve your buyers and sellers, but you bring an added twist because of your experience. And I think that's super cool because again, you said you're looking outside of the box.
Right.
So can you give if we have realtors watching, and I know we do, what would be one example of that extra magic that you've brought over?
Do not see your customers as a transaction. They're not your commission check. That's not what this is. At the end of the day, yes, this is how we put food on our table. But I'm not looking to get a deal. I'm looking to help someone take this amazing next step in their life. And if you look at your customers that way, if you see your customers as people, humans that are trying to achieve a goal, and you're there to help them set those goals and reach those goals, and you are their cheerleader, then that's it. That's all you have to do. You'll get there. You'll get them the home. You may go on 10 showings. You may write 5 contracts because they haven't found that home. Help them find that home. So I've never once seen a customer as a transaction. If I feel like it's becoming that way, I'll actually go to a team member and say, I'm not the right agent for this customer. That's the reason why I don't do a lot of short-term rentals, because it's not relationship building. I know that was a little bit of a controversy when I first joined the team because I'm like, no passion, don't want to do it, don't want to touch it. It's not that it's not an amazing industry, and it's not that it's not an amazing facet within the real estate industry. But if it's not relationship building, I am not the agent for you. I need to always have that relationship with someone. And I have no problem walking away.
I love what Christy just said. Christy, thank you for being here and watching today. She says, always involve the customer's names, the kids of the customer's names, and the pets. And look at Christy's she's got 2 dogs in her profile photo. So I love that. And actually, Christy, that's such a great reminder. Even in our CRM that Melissa and I use and our team uses, we've customized our CRM to include fields so that when we're in our buyer discovery or our seller discovery in the relationship, we capture that information and we have it in our CRM, pets names, children's names, spouses names, right? Like she's spot on. I talk about customer service is the way we make someone feel. And, I've referred to it as when we have our consumer hat on, we should be full body paying attention to the service we're receiving and understand why it's making us feel that way, what the service provider is doing to make us feel that way. And if we're ambivalent, if it's like, yeah, it's so, right?
Right. Yeah.
Why is it that way?
Yep.
If it's awful, well, what area of improvement could be displayed that would change it? Or if it's phenomenal, well, what did they do? Right. And Christy said the names, that makes me think of, when we go to our car dealership and we pull our car in, they'll say, hi, Mr. and Mrs. Funk. How's the real estate industry? Like they remember, right?
Yeah.
And so whenever I go, oh my gosh, however I feel about my car is almost irrelevant. When I go to the dealership, they see me as a human, not a number, which is exactly, Melissa, what you just said, is this isn't about a transaction. It's about the human connection.
It's not. And it's really not. I think we get lost in, because we are sole proprietors, because this is our business, it's so easy to get caught up in a numbers game and forget what our end goal is. Excuse me. My goal is to just always see people happy. And that was one thing I was able to do. And I had the license to do at theme parks. If someone dropped an ice cream cone, I was able to walk over to a vendor and say, hey, I need a new ice cream cone, and just give that ice cream cone to that little kid. I worked in the entertainment side of it. So I was able to set up private meet and greets. I was able to provide things to just in 5 years, they're going to remember that. And I do have customers that have come, guests, as we call them in the theme parks, that would come back and say, I remember when. Or I have family members and their little kids are like, I remember when you allowed me to see the sound booth, or I remember when. It's showing them my job, but it's something different. Excuse me. And I needed to be able to provide that to my customers, because if I'm not having joy in my job, I'm not spreading joy, and that's going to translate into my customers. So when I'm out on showings, I throw in tidbits all the time. If I'm not familiar with an area, I find tidbits in the home, like, oh, this pantry has this kind of shelving, and I love this kind of shelving because of this. The boxes won't fall through if it's solid. And like, oh, wouldn't have thought about that. Or, hey, this transition's kind of weird. I remember you mentioning, you have dogs that are older. Was this going to be a problem? So I try, when I'm looking through the home, I try to point out things to them that they're overwhelmed. They're walking in and they're seeing 9 times out of 10, they're seeing their decor, which is not for sale. So I have to get them to look past that decor. Like, let's look at the home, so it's get past the decor, because they come out of there. Oh, I like the way it was decorated. I like the color of the walls. Okay. But none of that stays. Yeah. That's all changeable. What about what about this? What about that? The yard's fenced in. Your 2 corgis can run around and have a great time. Or, hey, there's a hole in the fence over here. We just need to keep that in mind as we move forward. So I love to point out tidbits, or to give tidbits about, hey, they're vegan. There's a really cool vegan restaurant up the road here. When we go to the next showing, I'll wave when we pass it. They remember that stuff. It costs me $0. It's just things that come to my head that I share.
Okay, so let's take a step back, though, because when we're talking about advice for realtors to build their business with a customer focus, customer service focus, everything you just shared is predicated on the fact that you asked a lot of really great questions when you first initiated the relationship with the customer and in the buyer discovery. In this case, you're out with buyers, right?
Right.
So you are setting yourself up for success because you are asking the right questions. You are peeling the layers back. Right. Again, not as focused on transaction. I'm focused on the humans and what are the goals of the humans and who are going to be residing in the house. How many dogs? What kind of dogs, right? What are some of your favorite restaurants?
Yep.
These are all different types of questions that we as real estate agents can ask that some might say are not needed. I think, and we've shown
Very
through
much
what
so.
we're building together, is that those are even many times more valuable because you can take a moment and go, oh, they love eating at a vegan restaurant. Let me go ahead and find all of the restaurants that would be able to serve them in this vicinity, right? So
Yeah.
that they know, here you go. So I love that you're bringing that up. I just wanted to make sure you gave yourself credit and everyone realized this starts on conversation one
Yep.
by the questions we ask. And it's not actually just about what's the square footage? What's your preferred
Right.
price range? What is, what type of floor plan do you like? It's much bigger than that.
Yeah.
What do you love to do on Friday at the
Mm-hmm.
end of your work day? What does Friday evening look like to you? What
Yep.
does Sunday midday look like to you? These are questions that are so incredibly impactful because you start to understand what they love to do. So we can start to understand how we can find the home where they'll build the memories that they'll fall in love with.
Yeah. I mean, it goes as far as if they have children that are in karate, dance, some sort of extracurriculars, if they're already enrolled in a dance studio, they're not going to want to travel 20 miles to go to that same dance studio. And dance moms and children are very loyal to their dance studio. So that is another thing. When I find out they have little kids, I want to know the kids' hobbies. Yeah, the parents' hobbies as well, but I will actually dig in and find, or I'll say, oh, there's some great dance studios. We actually have one we already enjoy. Great. Where is that? I make a mental note of it. I check out the dance studio. So now I have that in my file of dance studios. But then I know when we're looking at homes, hey, this is only 5 minutes from that dance studio you were talking about. How do you feel about that? Or if we're a little bit further out, where are we on that scale? So I love finding out tidbits beyond 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, beyond 1,500 square feet. I think a home is much, much, much more than the structure you live in. It's much, much more.
I love it. Okay, so you have some definite mic drops on this conversation, Melissa. You are really dropping it, and I love it because it is exactly what we should focus on when we're looking to enrich the relationship and truly understand who we're working and serving.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, one of the things you and I briefly touched on, and I want to make sure we get in today,
Mm-hmm.
which is so impactful, is customer service through crisis.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this arm of the conversation speaks to everybody right now. I think
Yes.
it is safe to say that we've all experienced a level of crisis for the last 18-ish months,
Mm-hmm.
trying to navigate a pandemic and somehow try to navigate, our families and work and everything, our health. What are some of the things you've experienced, and how has customer service through crisis affected you in your role, whether it was before you became a realtor or
Mm-hmm.
now?
So I think most of us can say where we were on 9/11. I was getting ready for work. It's, tomorrow is the 20-year anniversary. I was getting ready for work. And my very first phone call was to my supervisor to say, I think we're being attacked. And he's like, come on in, we'll figure it out. And it was literally as the second plane was hitting the tower. I was watching the Good Morning America program. And I went to work. We still had to operate. We still had to open our venues. I was a part of a team that we opened all of the theatrical venues. We had to test all of the shows. So I'm still playing fun, happy music. I'm still listening to this. I'm still looking for details while experiencing the magnitude of what's happening around me, constantly staying in contact. That was before text messaging. We had pagers that we could text
I
on.
remember.
So the communication was not coming in the way it would today. So it's just an uneasy feeling while you're still doing your job. And as I'm doing that, I'm walking through the park and I'm passing guests, some completely oblivious to what's going on, and some that are like, do you have any other knowledge? Do you know what's going on? To then shut down the parks and to communicate that to guests, we're now closing. prior to 9/11, theme parks didn't close.
Yeah.
So when the March 2020 happened, theme parks do not close. So when the theme parks close, it puts a level of uncertainty into the Central Florida area. I know it doesn't impact the world quite as much, even the nation, but in Central Florida, if a theme park closes, if Disney closes their doors, everyone kind of has a moment to just freak out. One thing it taught me through 9/11 was you just got to keep going. You have to find reasons to keep going. You can't just stop and dwell in that moment. And that is one thing. The next day when we did open the next day, our flag on top. So at SeaWorld, there's a sky tower. It's a ride. At the top of that sky tower, there's an amazing American flag. It is either up or it's down. It cannot come down to half mast. So there was a lot of talk, a lot of meetings, and a lot of research on what to do in the situation when you cannot fly your flag at half mast. And the answer in flag etiquette is to fly it at full or to remove it. You cannot, for the most part, though, it's recommended to fly it at full. So as a company, they decided to fly it at full. We had meetings on how to address that with customers because there was a lot of angry customers. Can you imagine September 12th, 2001, we're flying an American flag at full.
Wow.
So to be able to have those conversations with people, it's not personal. I didn't make that decision. I educated the guest on why. Okay, well, in flag etiquette, we've discovered, and we are proud to be American. We want to show that symbol to the world. So we're going to continue to fly our flag because it was either that or take it down. And we prefer, as a company, we took the stance to fly it. So many thank yous. So many thank yous from people who just said, thanks for the education. Thanks for taking that stand. That moment taught me so much because it was so emotional. It's emotional for me. Come from a military family. That flag means a lot to me. I always would stop, take a look at it in the morning when the national anthem would play. I always have my hand over my heart. So it's very near and dear to me. But I couldn't show that to the guest. I had to agree with them. I understand where you're coming from. This is why we made our decision on why we made our decision. And 9 times out of 10, they thanked me. That was a huge learning lesson for me because I realized, one, my emotions don't matter in that moment. I can't show my emotions in that moment. And educating someone to understand why a decision was made is huge. So then once you educate someone and make that connection, then your emotions are valued. Then you come together as two people and you can connect and share that moment of embracing, and it stops becoming this.
Yeah.
It becomes this. So that moment, the flag, because of 9/11, taught me so much on how to approach someone in a moment of crisis. We had some other crises at SeaWorld that I lived through as in leadership. So I was in a different role where I had to take care of my team members at the same time as satisfying guests. And those are moments that in the moment, you don't realize what you're doing. You're just relying on your instinct.
Yeah.
And if your instincts are off, it can just be horrible for someone else. And my goal in life is to never be a negative impact in someone's life, to never be a negative memory. I always want to be a positive memory. When someone thinks of me, I never want them to think of, oh, I want them to always remember something positive I brought into their life. And that's what those crisis moments taught me.
Yeah.
Was to still bring positivity, education to someone's life, even if they're at their lowest, even if they're mad because their kid dropped a popsicle and they spent $5 on that popsicle and they're screaming and yelling at me because their entire vacation revolved around their kid getting that one popsicle. Okay, well, I'm gonna give you a new popsicle. It's done. It's over. Have a great day. And while I'm at it, hey, go make sure you see this show at this time because, the best trainer is there.
I think that in times of crisis we can learn so much, and we hopefully can bring in some resiliency to it.
Mm-hmm.
You everything you just described is such a level of understanding the moment and then being able to know the importance of being steadfast, being resilient, and still showing up, which even if we look at, the real estate industry, the last 18
Mm-hmm.
months or going back to March of 2020, those first few months of quarantine in
Mm-hmm.
our market in Central Florida, we were deemed essential. So real estate never shut down at all. We were
Mm-hmm.
still able to work. And that was a very interesting time because there were a lot of things that many didn't know answers to. And we still needed to show up. We still needed to show up for our buyers and our sellers and for each other as real estate colleagues. So, resiliency in those moments is something that stands out to me so very much. Also, giving ourselves the ability to know that if we don't have all the answers, that's not a bad thing. Um, and not having all the answers is okay to admit. That was one of the lessons I brought out of 2020 is when we have a leadership role, which all real estate agents have a leadership role,
Mm-hmm.
uh, we can be okay with saying, these are really great questions and we may not have all the answers, but you know what? I am backed and linked armed with the best of the best, and we're going to get to the finish line together and we will get the solution. We will get the answers. And there was a lot of that in 2020 earlier on when the pandemic first hit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The team, being on a team was just phenomenal. Being in a brokerage that was already cloud based, we didn't skip a beat when it came to
Mm.
that. I mean, I definitely think there was an advantage there because it wasn't how do we just do. So
That's
that
what we've
was
been doing.
fantastic. Right. So
From
for
an
us, there
operational
was
standpoint.
from an
Yeah.
operational standpoint, which allowed us to focus then on the customer part of it and not the
Yep.
operational part. And that was one thing I acknowledged early on, that we, in our meetings, we were not talking about anything about our business. We were talking about how are we going to still serve our customers without being able to meet them in person. And we came up with, we've already been doing virtual tours, so we turned those virtual tours. I tweaked my virtual tours after, March of 2020. It became a little bit more personal, where
Yeah.
before it was, the virtual tour was like, hey, I'm going to show it to you now, but we're going to come back and see it in person. I had to turn those virtual tours into, I'm the eyes and ears
Yeah.
in this home for my customer. And I'm seeing the home like this. They're seeing the home like this because they're only seeing what my lens is allowing them to see. I didn't have a GoPro on my head, and everywhere I looked, they looked. It was, it was my camera. And that was one thing I couldn't do this, because if I
Yeah.
did that, they were getting sick on the other end. So we really had to learn and finesse virtual showings. And virtual showings now are so normal. And a customer,
Common.
it's yeah, all the time.
Which then now brings an efficiency level, right? And it's helped us
Mm-hmm.
elevate the customer service experience. Not to say it replaces, but to say that we have additional efficiencies built in that
Mm-hmm.
can help us through the initial process. So yeah, that it's interesting you mentioned that the virtual tours definitely had an iteration,
Mm-hmm.
and they pivoted some in 2020 because where it was a little more mechanical prior to
Right.
COVID, then we learned how to adopt virtual showings, virtual tours. We even
Mm-hmm.
do, remote consults now. We're doing a lot of
Yep.
video consults. All of that, we sharpened our skill set at being able to be human in that process
Yeah.
and still provide great service, but in a new way.
In a new way. And that's what I loved about the challenges that came about during 2020 was, some people saw it as a challenge that it was a mountain to climb, or you could think outside of that box. There are no limitations to customer service. And if people can just see, there's no walls to customer service. There's no ceiling to customer service. You can just, going above and beyond is easy to do. You can go further than that though. And it's not about what can I do to go above and beyond. It's what can I do to just be a good person to my customer. And it's when I do a virtual home showing, it's so simple to do that because I'm like, how would they be looking at this home? And I loved that, especially our team. It was just like, okay, well, now we're just going to do this. It wasn't there wasn't a moment of how are we going to be able to continue our business. It was, how do we still provide that same level of customer service? And that's when, I mean, for me, that's when I'm grounded with EXP for sure, because it's always about the customer. And coming from that 20 plus years of hospitality, that's my passion. That's where I always will be. If it's not about serving my community in some way, my pitcher's not full, and I need to be overflowing so I can contribute to my community.
I love that. And even just a little less than an hour ago, you and I were in a meeting with our agents, and we were talking about scripting. And it's another thing that I'm very grateful for, because scripting does not mean mechanical.
Right.
Scripting can mean, and in our case, even in our last meeting, we're talking about understanding the right questions to ask, which everything you've shared today is predicated on asking the right questions, because customer service means a different thing to each individual. So we could just assume that customer service looks like this, but if we don't understand who the human is that we're serving, we don't understand how to create magical moments for them. And so even in this morning's meeting, when we talk about scripting, we're really digging in deep to make sure, are we asking the right questions? Are we giving ourselves an opportunity to understand more the customers and the buyers and the sellers? It's so incredibly important to always to establish great question skills set, to be a master question asker.
Yes, exactly.
And to keep practicing and to introduce new types of questions that we can help learn more about the people.
I learned something from every customer. Every customer, I learned something along the way, and I implement that into my next relationship. Always. There's always something I've learned that I'm like, oh, well, that's a good point. Whoa, that's something different. Hadn't thought about that before. We have a closing coming up next week with a barn. I've never worked on a transaction with a barn. They were more interested in parts and pieces of it, but the logistics of a barn, I had to learn the logistics of a barn. But now I understand some logistics of a barn. So the next time I have a barn that's going to come up, I can be like, hey, did you know? Because
are you going to dance through the wait, what was it? Dancing through the deals. Dancing through the deals. Okay, wait, we need to see you dancing through the deals outside that barn.
Yes. Tuesday.
Okay.
So excited. It's actually closing on my 15-year wedding anniversary. So.
Oh my goodness.
I'll be dancing all day.
Dancing all day is important. We have about 2 more minutes. Last takeaways, Miss Melissa.
There's just no boundaries. Customer service does not come with boundaries. And if you can just think of your customers as friends and family, that's it. That's just who they are. They're friends and family, and there's no bounds. There's no boundaries when it comes to friends and family.
I love it. I'm so proud of you and proud to be in business with you. I love this conversation. I adore you. You're amazing. And I'm grateful that we shared time today.
There we go again. I need that filter, the anti-red filter.
Well,
thank you. I adore the love I have for you and Jeff, and the support I got this last year, which is a whole nother conversation, has been amazing. With the addition of Gretchen, the 3 of you on this team, it's been amazing. And I'm so excited to grow my business and to grow my relationships and just see where it takes me and my family over the next couple of years. So excited. So thank you for that opportunity. Thank you for this opportunity.
Yes, you did.
I'm very
amazing.
excited that I didn't get sick on camera.
You did amazing. And for everyone watching and sharing your comments, thank you so much. We're
Thank you,
going to be
guys.
coming back every Friday with Fridays with the Funk Collection, talking all things real estate, talking all things about how we can help improve our businesses together. So, Melissa Cox, make it a great day. And thank you, everybody, for watching.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.